Hi, I'm David Kornguth, the radiation oncologist here at Golden Gate Cancer Center, and I'd like to introduce our cancer center as well as our approach to treating patients with newly diagnosed cancer. The older I've gotten, the more patients I've treated, and even my own personal experience of helping my parents kind of go through the whole cancer process from diagnosis to even end of life issues has really influenced how I see things. I think that the more experience I have, the more important it is to look at patients as individuals and the physician role more as a guide of helping patients kind of go through the process, understanding that the most important thing is keeping that sort of focus on quality of life issues. So I've set up the Cancer Center to try to be consistent with my own beliefs. Our first cancer center was located at 139 Townsend Street. We've been in our current location at 1661 Mission Street since 2020. Our current location on Mission Street is very close to the intersection of Van Ness and Mission. It's really just right off the exit of the Central Freeway if you take the Van Ness exit. Patients are greeted with a valet attendant to try to make the experience as smooth as possible so you don't have to stress about even like parking, which was one of the big sort of complaints I had just helping my parents through the process. Patient experience once you're inside the center, my staff is really focused on you as an individual, and our staff is multilingual and speaks a variety of languages, including all the different dialects of Chinese, Hindi, and even Spanish. When patients have a new diagnosis and are referred to radiation oncologists such as myself, there's always an initial evaluation where I'll talk about the staging system, we'll talk about prognosis, potential side effects, and more important, treatment options and whether or not that's sort of consistent with what you value as quality of life. The very first step is to do a CT scan, which we call a planning session, which is basically a CT scan done on the same table you're going to be treated on, usually lying on some sort of device that keeps you in the same position, which is going to be sort of on the table when you're treated on a daily basis. That ensures that when you're being treated, there's daily reproducibility, meaning that you're in that same position every day. That CT scan is going to be used to create what is essentially a template for your daily treatments. You see, we need to map everything out so that I can create a customized instruction set for the machine that's sort of customized for your specific situation. And that sometimes has to be modified or changed over the course of your treatment, but that's going to start as the starting point. When I get that scan and I identify my targets and my avoidance structures, I'm going to be working with a physicist or what we call a dosimetrist to help create this sort of instruction set. And then there's a verification process that's done before you actually start your first treatment. That process of planning, those sort of steps that occur behind the scenes, usually take at least a week, but more often 2 weeks, depending on the complexity of the sort of treatment plan. And then your first treatment would begin. And daily treatments only take about 5 or 6 minutes. The beam on time, the so-called treatment itself, is 90 seconds, but the actual targeting system, which is done for all patients every day, takes another couple minutes and sometimes a little bit longer. The main reason I like our equipment, which is a so-called Halcyon machine that's made by Varian, which is based here in the Bay Area, but they're one of the sort of premier manufacturers of radiation treatment equipment in the world at this point. When patients are completed with their treatment, they actually feel completely normal. In fact, we have patients who have bicycled here and bicycled out for their daily treatments. Patients who are working usually continue to work throughout the whole treatment process. So it's not like chemotherapy where you're going to be wiped for some period of time after an infusion. These are daily targeted radiation treatments, and side effects of daily radiation is really going to depend on what we're treating. There's not a single sort of set of side effects that I can tell you about. That's going to be something that we'd have to discuss in a sort of consultation session. The number of treatments for cancer is really going to depend not only on the cancer itself, but what the goal is and what other organs are in that area. The shortest treatment course is typically 5 treatments, which is given sort of twice weekly for 2.5 weeks. Again, each treatment session is only a couple minutes, but the more typical sort of course of treatments is actually a Monday through Friday schedule, and that range can be anything from 2 weeks all the way up to 9 weeks. The difference between these different regimens is usually that cumulative dose, and for areas that are near some sort of critical structure, you have to go at a slower pace to avoid side effects. For areas which are basically pure tumor and you're not as worried about sort of that tissue right outside the target, you can often give a short number of treatments at a very high dose. But that again is something that we'd have to talk about in a consultation session. A little bit about me. I grew up in Wisconsin. I ended up doing my medical training at Boston University, and then I moved to Houston, Texas, and I did my internship and residency at MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is one of the biggest cancer centers in the world. I believe it still is. And then afterwards, I stayed on as faculty and worked in the department that treated both pediatric tumors as well as adult brain tumors. And I did that for several years. And that obviously influenced a lot of my thinking about our role in medicine and how to deliver not only good care, compassionate care, but really try to shoot straight with folks about what potential side effects are. And then I moved to Northern California when my kids were very young. I hope this video was helpful in introducing our approach and myself. Give us a call if we can help you at 415-541-0800.